morning, Kevin and Rochelle. I'm so happy that you're all here with me today and talking about your presentation that you're going to be doing at the Step Up Conference coming up on April 28th. And so you're doing a presentation called How to Be an Effective Ally. So tell me about that.
You want to go first, Rochelle, or you want me to go?
Sure, Kevin, go ahead.
Okay, well, the term ally is something that's a very popular term. And a lot of people, thankfully, who belong to organizations, businesses, faith groups, individual professionals, just individuals, really want to support the anti-racist movement that's really kind of sweeping through the country in terms of really dealing with racism, understanding it, addressing it, and getting some of the tools that they can use in the workplace or in their personal lives to really deal with it. Because I think it's one of those sticky subjects that people feel uncomfortable talking about. So we really are enthusiastic about getting a chance to share some of our experiences and knowledge when it comes around to what exactly makes an effective ally. Because it's just like, I might want to drive a car, but I got to go through driver training first before I get behind the wheel and pass the test. So there's got to be a lot of preparation and understanding about what you're doing because it is so critical. Over to you, Rochelle.
Well, I'm really excited about this event because I work in Native communities. We do mental health, behavioral health. That's the work that I'm in right now. But as a person, a Native person, Indigenous person, who is also white passing, I hear a lot of things that other people don't hear. This is really, really important to me because I hear things that people are comfortable to say because of the way that I look. I'm absolutely not a part of that. And so I have things on both sides. And I think that because now is now's the moment for us, like in diversity, equity, inclusion, people are paying attention. I am so excited to share this. I'm excited to share what it means to be an ally to all people, but also Indigenous people, because we're often invisible. So I'm really excited to share who we are, how people can step up and be allies. And I think that now's our time to do that work.
Well, I just wanted to add, too, that there is a considerable pushback as well against addressing some of the things I mentioned, systemic racism, being anti-racist, that kind of thing. So in order to be an effective ally, you also need to know how to deal with barriers or organizations that are afraid to go any further in the journey to understand racism and the history behind it. There's a lot of suppression of history going on right now. So the allies really need to know what they're getting themselves into and how to deal with the barriers and the pushback and all aspects of being an ally. And finally, it's not a check the box situation. This is a lifelong commitment and investment of time and energy. It's not something like a vaccine where, you take a shot and then you're covered for the whole year.
Right. So we don't want any performative allies.
Absolutely not.
No, thank you.
And Rochelle, I like the fact that, you brought up being Indigenous and white passing.
Yes.
So you're walking in this fine line where people of European descent will say things to you because they look at you as being white and you're like, whoa, hold up. You don't know my ancestors.
Right. And that's, and it's unfortunately, so for some Native people, we have to explain who we are by blood quantum, which is this is a colonizer thing. This is not something we've done historically. But I will say, because it is important, because of being white passing and Indigenous, my father is a full blood Native person. He is Nech'Alneth First Nations, full blood. My mom is half American Indian. And so I look this way and people are very comfortable to express who they really are in my presence all the time. And so I know that I enjoy white privilege because of the way that I look, but I also hear things from other communities that I would not otherwise hear. And so I have all these different perspectives and, real things that I can share with people as good examples, and kind of share with them the tools that I've used to work through those things. And it's not easy, but it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not easy. It's like before I would, being Indigenous myself, being born and raised in Hawaii and also being mixed as well too. I would look at people of European descent, calling them the colonizers. It's like, you're a colonizer, you're a colonizer, and causing a lot of harm and hurt. Then unpacking, decolonizing myself, and I'm Hawaiian, Chinese, Filipino, Spanish, and Portuguese. Spanish and Portuguese, two of the biggest colonizers in the world.
Right.
I needed to check myself, right?
Yes. I've gone through it too. I've gone through the same thing. I know Kevin and I've had those discussions in the past, especially being younger. I use a derogatory term toward, those of European descent in indigenous language, like that would make it better somehow. And like, what am I doing? I don't hate myself, right? I don't hate the blood that runs through my veins. I can't do that.
Exactly.
So it took some growth, right?
Yes. And so with your session, talking about how to be an effective ally, there's also healing involved in allyship as well too.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because everyone has a role to play. Everyone can be an ally. That's the thing. Sometimes people will say, well, I'm this white guy living out on a farm in South Dakota. What's this got to do with me? There's a lot of healing that needs to go on in the country. And I think what's happened is, like we've talked about this, about how we've had to deal with microaggressions and passive aggressive behavior. And so it's almost like we internalize a lot of things. And sometimes I've heard Black people say, hey, this racism doesn't bother me. I just deal with it, but it's all in here. And then it comes out in other ways. So it comes out in physiological ways, with health issues, mental health issues, things like that, substance abuse even, because people aren't getting it out so that the healing can take place. So we have to be able to have the tools to get it out so we can look at it and actually feel some things that might not be that pleasant to feel. So there's a certain courageousness that has to go with this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so who is your target audience in this for this conference?
Well, I like to say everybody, but I know that organizations, businesses, people who are at different points in the journey, there's certain organizations that maybe they're just starting their DEI program. Somebody else from another organization, maybe their DEI program is 5-10 years old even. We've all got something to learn, though, collectively. So it's anyone who is working in the nonprofit field, the educational field, the business field, who wants to learn more, be more effective, more culturally competent, so that they're able to serve the ever-growing diverse population that is a reality. The country's getting browner, as some people like to say. So even if you're just a business person, you have to know who your clients are and understand them, and not be superficial about it.
Absolutely.
And can I
You
add
want
to
to
that
add anything?
too?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to add to that. Something that is important to me is like the individual that would attend. And my target audience is the afraid individual. This person wants to be a supporter and they want to be an ally. They don't know where to begin. I don't know where to begin. I don't know what to say. I'm afraid to ask questions, because I can promise our audience, this is the day to come. This is the day to show up. Ask me, ask Kevin in this safe place. You will not be judged if you come with your questions from a place of curiosity and a need to understand and do better. Come to us and ask us. Nothing you say is going to be offensive, because this is the space. This is the time. We want to hear from you so we can give you those tools that you need to begin.
Absolutely, because we've all got something to learn. I mean, I'm learning a lot from Rochelle, because I haven't had a lot of experience with Indigenous, Native American cultures and people. So I just shut up and listen, because it's going to help me as an individual, but it's also going to help me in my work. That's one thing that attracted me to this position, was that the emphasis on Native and Strong, on some of the programs that are focused on Native American and Indigenous people in the community.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So what motivated you to present at the Step Up conference?
Well, I'll go first. I've done it before, so I had a really good experience. I had some nice networking that came out of it, just meeting people that I didn't even know were out there. So that was a catalyst, the Step Up conference was. And just the commitment and the passion around the topic of equity and inclusion and diversity. And yeah, it was just something like, it's that great party you don't want to miss.
How about you, Rochelle?
So for me, it kind of goes back to, again, Native people, we're less than 2% of the population, right? And we have been invisible for far too long. It appears that most people believe that we are somewhere from the 1800s and that we're not still here today. And so the reason it's important for me to present is not just behalf on of Native people, but also if we're feeling invisible, there are other populations that are feeling that same way, smaller populations, right, that you don't see all over television and the media. And so now's the time, because people are paying attention. If they're paying attention to us as Native people, we have a huge program right now that is spreading across the country, because First people are finally being recognized first. And so we have this time, we have this stage, and we want to share who we are now. And so if we can do that, other people could be inspired to say, you know what, I want to do this too. I want people to know us. I want people to know about us. We don't want to be invisible. So I'm really excited to participate, because quite often for Indigenous people, we don't see ourselves represented in anything. Even when we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we don't see a lot of Native issues discussed, right? So this is the time for that. And again, it's not just for Native people, but for anybody that is feeling that they too are invisible.
Well put.
Thank you. Thank you. So my final question is, what is the single most important message you want to convey to your audience to help move racial equity forward?
Well, I would say that action equals change. I think it's very easy to put a Black Lives Matter sign in your window and sit there around the coffee table and say, that's really terrible, that racist incident that happened around the corner, and then not do anything. Because if you look throughout history, if Martin Luther King had sat on his couch and said, all this racism and segregation is wrong, and then went back to watching TV, nothing would have happened. There had to be a march, there had to be Rosa Parks, there had to be some meaningful action to make change happen. So I think that getting people out of that performative mindset and being crippled by fear so that they can plunge ahead into some unknown territory. But we all have a role to play. But I want people to walk away and say, hey, tomorrow I'm going to do this thing that I've never done before, that's going to create some type of change, or at least, add a spark to that movement.
Thank you. How about you, Rochelle?
So for me, I think that one of the most important messages to share with allies is, only the community knows what the community needs. If you want to be an effective ally, support us by doing your own research too. We cannot be relied upon to answer every question all the time, although we are here and open for that. But take the time to really live it. Live what you're talking about. Do your own research. Learn about those foundational things. And then when you have questions, come and ask your Indigenous friends, ask your Black friends, ask your Asian friends, right? So doing your own research, learning what you can, so that you're not exhausting somebody else. Because when we try to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion with others, it can be exhausting when you have to start from square one. All the way to now. It's really difficult to do. And so if people could, as good allies, do some research, have something to come to the table with, and then we can talk about it more. I think that would be my message.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much. It sounds like you're going to be providing some really valuable tools for people to start engaging in these conversations that can be so complex, but how to be allies with each other, how to build community, how to be in relationship with each other. Because when we're in relationship with each other, then there is a responsibility and an accountability to that relationship. So I am really looking forward to having you both. Let's see, I think your session is going to be, what do you know what time?
It's in the morning, 9:45 to 11:45, I think.
9:45 to 11:45. Okay, yeah, we're looking forward to having you. So yes, Thank you so much for spending this morning with me and sharing your insight, and looking forward to receiving your wisdom.